Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jenless, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about how being willing to hear one more no can open up a world of possibility. Let's dive in. Hey there, friend, it's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode made my heart sing in so many ways, recording this episode with Kyle Hamilton. So Kyle has a digital marketing agency, and the story that led him to get to this point is so fascinating in so many ways, and all of just the ways in which he could have become tethered to what he felt like the expectations of his life could have been. And then all of the places along the way where he faced potential failure, but he trusted himself and he leaned into the magic of his dreams. Whether he was doing it consciously or not, this is what he did. And I feel like there are so many lessons that we can each pull out along the way. Now, for the entrepreneur, solopreneur, I think this episode, I know it's got something for anybody, but if you're that person, he also talks a little bit about how to really define your target audience, what it really means to be in marketing. That's the work that he does. And there is some gold in here for you with that too. So just a heads up for the entrepreneur who might be having that, like, is all of my stuff that I'm showing up on social media with worth it? Am I showing up in the right way? He's got a really good question for you to think about in the meat of this episode. So without further ado, I welcome the founder of birr agency, Kyle Hamilton. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, how's it going today?
It's good. I'm so glad that you asked. What a kind question. Grateful to have you on the podcast sharing your perspective and all of the experiences that you've been through in life. So you run your own digital marketing agency. And I have to believe, generally, when I hear that people have made it to that point, they've had some experiences along the way that have led them along the journey. We're all on our own unique journeys, and it takes a lot of courage to branch out on our own and to start something. And especially in this space where there's a lot of, you could call it internet chaos, like things are always changing. And so the courage to go in and start to forge your own path, and they're celebrating that for you, and would love to hear, how did you get to this point? What is the like impetus that led you to create a business like this for yourself?
Definitely. I'm happy to share my story and dive into this with you. So yeah, I mean, to kind of kick it off, I didn't always envision myself becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a digital marketer. When I left high school, I was 17 years old, and I had it mapped out that I could be a neurologist, brain surgeon by the time I was 32. I come from a family of medical doctors, like as far back as you can trace my dad's family tree. There's been a medical doctor in every generation. Both of my grandpas were medical doctors. My dad's a dentist. I've got an uncle who's a dentist, a cousin who's a dentist. Like, wow. The medical world was very much in my upbringing.
Was there expectation in you following that?
I think there was. I mean, I've got a ton of respect for my parents in how they raised us, and there was, because I've got two siblings, who one of them's a nurse and the other's an engineer. But, they very much did raise us like, you are your own individual, and, nice. Go set your own course in life. We're here to guide you, but you've got to make your own decisions and live with the consequences or the results. And so, yeah, I started my first year of university. I was only 17 years old at the time. I kind of went, I'm young. Let's get into university, but let's see how much fun we can have. And very quickly, my eyes just opened up to all of the possibilities with school, with life. Being young and impressionable, young Kyle was kind of went, wow, this is awesome. And I spent probably more time having fun than I should have, and not quite as much time studying that first semester of school and had a couple classes.
Happens.
Had a couple classes where I looked at my grades at Christmas and went, I'm surprised they're not asking me to become what's colloquially known here as a Christmas graduate. So someone who just doesn't go back to school after their first semester. But yeah, so did my first year of university, and kind of just before starting university, I'd gone to France on a school exchange when I was in grade 11, and met a bunch of guys in the same city I grew up in. They just happened to be on the other side, live on the other side of the city. But we went to France for a month and we had a great time. We became instant best friends. And we all decided after high school we were going to go back to France for a bit. Again, like I said, I was only 17 when we graduated. One of the other guys was only 17. So we couldn't actually leave the country without our parents' permission. And they weren't very forthcoming with saying, yeah, you go off and travel Europe at 17. So we decided we were going to do our first year of university and then go explore. And we did. The plan was to go to France, get a job, get working student work visas, go over there and work for kind of a couple months and then travel for a couple months. You know what 18-year-olds do when they're young and going to Europe for the first time. We don't really have any plans. And so one of my buddies happened to have a connection to his current job. Anyways, we ended up in Nice, France. And I being young, naive, 18-year-old, was like, oh, I'll get a job as a waiter, no problem. I'm bilingual. I studied French. Went through a French immersion program from kindergarten right through to grade 12. So could speak French, what I, at the time, thought was fluently. And I spent my first 3 weeks handing out resumes, like 10, 20 a day, and not getting a single callback or inquiry or anything like that. And finally one day, having handed out, I don't know, 20, 30 resumes, I literally had like one, maybe two resumes left in my hand, and was walking back towards the hostel that we were staying at, and walked past this little restaurant that was like tucked away a block and a half off the coast, or off the beach, the Promenade des Anglais, right on the beach in Nice, and walked past and went, you know what? What's one more resume? What's one more no? Walked in, introduced myself, gave them my little spiel, handed them a resume, and the manager kind of looked at it and said, "Can you come back at 5 o'clock today? My dad's the owner. We'd love to have a chat. I think he'd love to have a chat with you." And so I did. It was kind of like, oh, this is the first callback I've had. Maybe things are turning around, and went back, had this interview. We were chatting for about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes, and he's like, "Right, can you start on Monday?" sort of thing. And I was like, "Yeah, perfect. I can start sooner if you need me to. Like, I've literally got nothing else going on." He's like, "Yo, come back on Monday, and we'll start training you in the kitchen, kind of getting you up to speed." And I kind of went, hold on a sec. It must have been some sort of misunderstanding. Like, I'm kind of trying to apply for a waiter job or some front of house type job because I'm bilingual and, I'd be able to help you with your customers, tourists coming in. They're like, "Yeah, no, we don't need any front of house help. We need help in the kitchen." I was like, "Okay, well, I learned how to boil an egg just before I came on this trip, so that and boil pasta. So I don't know, like, if this is really a good idea for you guys." And the owner, bless his heart, basically looked at me and said, "Kid, you're 18 years old. You've flown halfway across the world. You're trying to find a job in a foreign country that's not speaking your mother tongue. I've got faith in you that I can teach you what I need to teach you to work in my kitchen. And if I don't, then I'll just fire you. Or like, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just fire you. But, I think you should really give it a shot and see what we can do." And I kind of went, okay, let's do this. And I ended up working in that job. I was only planning on being there for kind of 2 months. I ended up working there for almost 5, worked right through their entire summer busy season, then went traveling, and just kind of decided I wasn't going back to school right away. And so I intentionally planned it that I didn't get back to Canada until Christmas. To this day, my dad still laughs that I'm the only person he's ever heard of who, as a teenager, young kid, flies to Europe and then sends money home. I managed to make enough money, save enough money over that summer that I sent half of what I earned home and then traveled for 4 months on the rest of it. And so, yeah, from there, just kind of started charting my own course and always kind of taking this idea of, okay, I can learn this. And if I can't learn it, then I'll just move on. And that's really helped kind of define how I got to where I am now. I went back to school, finished 2 degrees, and was on my way to go do law school. I decided, kind of moved away from the medical professional field, but after finishing 2 degrees at university, decided maybe it's time to quote unquote join the real world. I'm going to go off to law school. I got accepted to 3 or 4 law schools in Europe, wanted to go overseas, get kind of that foreign law approach and just expand my mind to the approach to law from North America perspective. In the interim, I'd taken this summer job here in Fernie where I now still live, or sorry, a winter
It's
job.
in Canada for those who are
in
Canadian.
Canada, in British Columbia. I'd taken another 6 months, a year gap, and was traveling around New Zealand for a bit. Came back and wasn't able to get back into school that winter because I got back in early October. School started maybe in September. I digress. I was working at this remote cat skiing lodge, Island Lake Lodge. If any of your listeners are into cat skiing or downhill skiing, alpine skiing, and got a job working there for a winter as a housekeeper. Fast forward, I'm going to law school. I had like an 8-week gap, and I was like, okay, I need a summer job for that 8 weeks before I go off to law school in Europe. Called my old boss up and was like, hey, any chance you've got like a job for 8 weeks? I just need kind of something short term. And I think this was like a Thursday again. And she said, can you be here by Monday morning? I went, yeah, sure. What do you need? And she's like, well, we need somebody to be our overnight overnight first aid attendant, because I had some first aid qualifications, and somebody to just work housekeeping. So I was like, perfect. That sounds like they were going to pay me to live at this lodge 10 kilometers up a windy dirt track. Had a job. They needed someone for 2 months. Got here, started doing the job, living up here. About 2 weeks later, my parent and the whole time, as soon as I got here, my brain's going, man, this is the life. Like this is what
Something felt
this
good.
is what I want. And very quickly in that 2 weeks, I kind of realized like the whole reason I want to go away to law school and get a professional job is so that I can afford to come to a place like this for 2 weeks of the year. Take my 2 weeks holiday and come to a place like this. And I just kind of had this light bulb moment of, why do I need to go and work 60, 80, 100 hours a week to afford this lifestyle to be in a place like this for 2 weeks of the year, when I can just kind of shift that and I don't have to make $100,000 a year if I'm literally waking up in the morning to my ideal vacation. Like my life, it was my ideal vacation at that point. Right. So yeah, my parents came out for this little holiday visit with me. We did this hike, my mom and dad and I, and then the lodge is situated, perched over top of this lake. They've got this gorgeous big deck balcony area. There's a restaurant and everything. We do the hike, we come back, the restaurant's open for lunch. We're the only people up there right now at this time. My mom gets up and goes inside. I think she's going to the bathroom or whatever. My dad and I are the only two sitting out there on this deck. Just imagine alpine lake and mountain head wall. And that is your view from
Bob Ross painting.
Exactly. Better, yeah. Bob Ross or better, because this is real life. And right. I pushed the chair back and put my feet up on the table and turned to my dad and said, so Dad, what do you think of the view from my corner office? And he kind of looked at me and he went, it's maybe not the choice I'd have made, but sitting here, I get it. So like that was how I told my parents I wasn't going to law school.
Wow.
And that was almost 20 years ago. I haven't left. So I've just kind of taken this idea of my life is what I'm going to make of it, and forged ahead. I went from being a housekeeper there to part of the reason why I chose Fernie and this ski resort was somewhere deep inside of me, I had this vision of becoming an action sports photographer. I'd done a short little course at university on how to use a camera. And again, being a young, naive kid, I thought, I'm going to be an action sports photographer. I can do that. If anybody can do it, why can't I? If someone can do it, I can too. And so I picked up a camera. I started taking pictures of things, and one day in the winter, while they were running their cat skiing operations, the lead photographer kind of approached me and said, "Hey, I know you've been taking a bunch of photos. One of our photographers is off sick. Are you interested in maybe filling in tomorrow?" And I was just like, "This is like dream come true." Yeah, exactly. So totally jumped onto that. That just kind of snowballed into this other career as being a photographer. I built up a portraits wedding studio, shooting weddings and portraits kind of through the summer months, and
Wow.
winter months I leveraged that into working with some friends, and we started a content creation agency where we traveled around to all of the cat skiing and heli skiing operations around British Columbia, shooting photos and creating videos for their social media and their digital content. And that kind of then led me to where I am now. Part of that content creation, worked with Aland Skis, largest ski manufacturer in the world, and shot a campaign with them that was used for billboards here, there, and everywhere, and magazine shoots. And it was kind of, I'd gone from this thought of, I would love to be an action sports photographer, to seeing my images being used in all sorts of different media. And it was
so cool.
Yeah, it was satisfying, to say the least.
Can we pause? Because first of all, this is just so exciting to see this playing out for you and to hear the thread of what has happened, whether you realized what you were doing or not. This entire time you were following your intuition, which was led by your dreams. So when we look at the world of manifestation is often what we call it, but you had a dream, you had a vision, and it was guiding you and you were letting it. And even though sometimes you were saying, you know what, I should probably do the law thing. Like, you're obviously well qualified for that. You've got the brain and you've got the drive for that. There were moments where you realized that something else was pulling you where you were, and you said yes to that, which is so often what we don't do.
Yeah.
So often what we don't do.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea for you what led to that? Because so many of us are so tethered. We're so tethered. And I'm sure you've had those moments of feeling like, I should.
100%. Yeah.
But you said yes to yourself. So what's different for you, do you think?
I don't know. I don't feel like I'm special in any way, shape, or form, or different from other people. Like when I kind of moved out to Fernie and then started building this life out here, I had a lot of friends back home who were like, "Oh man, I wish I could do that, something like that." And I've traveled a bunch, and like, "Oh man, I wish I could do something like that." And my answer was like, "Well, why can't you? Literally, our paths were very parallel, and they only diverged when I said yes, and you said, I'm going to take this route." As I'm sitting here talking about this memory popped into mind, from when I was in Europe that first summer, and traveling around. And I met a woman on my travels who, just kind of said, "I'm trying to live my life with no regrets." And that thought has been repressed until literally this very moment, I think. But it, as I think back on it now, there's been a lot of times in my life where I've kind of went, if I do this, what happens? If I do that, what happens? Which one am I going to regret in the future not doing more than anything? Am I going to look back on my life and go, "Oh, if only I had done this, or if only I had done that." Another solid person that I really need to credit with a lot of the trajectory of my life is my wife. When when she first moved here to Canada, she's from England. We met in Nepal, but that's a whole other story. She's British.
Wow.
But I was working in the hotels, and I'd worked my way up. I was managing 2 hotel properties at the ski resort here. And at the same time, I was building up the photography career. And it basically got to a point where, I was spending 30 to 40 hours doing photography and content creation. I was doing my 30 to 40 hours of hospitality management, and it just was not sustainable. I was like, the whole reason why I'm living here is not to be working 60 to 80 hours a week. Like, this isn't right. And she kind of sat me down and went, okay, well, like, let's look at this from let's try and be rational and logical about a decision here. So, if you choose to focus on hotels, and in 3 to 5 years time, you realize, yeah, this isn't working out for me, can you go back, get into photography, get into content creation, get back into that career path? And I kind of went, well, things change so rapidly in this industry. Building up a client list is going to take another 3 or 4 years. It'd be very tough to just pivot again in 3 to 4 years. Okay, well, if you focus on photography and content creation, and in 3 to 5 years time, it's not working out, can you get back into the hospitality space? And I went, well, I'm probably not going to step right into a general manager type role, but I can very quickly work my way up. Hospitality, yes, things change, but at the end of the day, it's been around for hundreds and possibly even thousands of years as an industry. So
with a view like that,
yeah,
it's still going to be there.
Exactly. So she's like, well, so there we go. Like, that should tell you what to do. Like, pursue photography, give it your all, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can go back. You've got kind of a plan B or a fallback plan, getting back into hospitality. Or maybe that's when you decide, okay, I'm old enough, mature enough now to go to law school and join the real world that way.
Real world.
Yeah. So yeah, when I sit down and I make these decisions, it's like, okay, well, if I get to this, like, if I get here and it's not working out, do I have another option? And if so, okay, go for it. And sometimes, though, I've forced myself to go, you know what? There is no other option. You just need to do this. So I hope that answers that question.
It does. She offered you such a powerful gift of perspective there, of
Totally.
looking at it and just really seeing, I can always come back to this, but I'm going to follow that passion for now and see where it leads me, because either door could lead to, this point. So which one do you want to take? And it gave you that decision point to go with the one that really felt like you were calling. So this podcast, for you and for some listeners who might be new, it used to be called The Creative Commute. And that's one of my beliefs, is that our creative gifts are coming with us all the way. So the gift that you had of, getting to become a cook and to be able to do that, and to travel and have that open perspective, have that conversation with that woman that you've just remembered today, probably had a huge impact on your life and your perspective. Her voice has probably been there without your conscious awareness through this whole thing. That's all been part of your creative commute to come to the point that you are now, and helping you to live this untethered life. I mean, we've always got tethers, but you've lived what some might look at as, oh my gosh, you went to France as a young person. You worked there. Wait, how did you do that? We always want to know the how, but you were just figuring it out along the way. And you had these magical moments like that person, like you said, what's one more no? What is one more no? That in itself is a powerful story for us to think, what's one more no? Just go do it again. Go do it again. Go do it again. We're so afraid of failure.
I that's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like, in my work now with my clients, running my agency, like, I do a lot of branding and strategy and marketing support for small and medium-sized businesses. And there seems to be this very ingrained fear of failure. And, I have it myself. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm always like, oh, but what if it doesn't work out? But just realizing that, if someone says no, it's generally not a personal attack. It's just now's not the right time. And so, you know, circling back to that initial, what's one more no, walking in and being asked, well, can you come back in a couple hours because the owner will be back then. Like it's the timing thing. And a lot of times it becomes a game of numbers, and, you know, getting in front of the right people at the right time is what is going to eventually lead to success.
And the openness to another option, because another thing you did in that scenario was, you know, you could have said, no, I am seeing myself as a waiter and that's it. But that he opened the door to a new opportunity for you that ended up panning out.
It certainly did. Yeah. I mean, life has not been easy. Nobody's life is, you know, everybody's life's got ups and downs. And, but at the end of the day, well, hopefully not the end of the day, this day, but in the future, many years in the future, when I'm lying on my deathbed, I'll be able to look back and go, yeah, that was a good effort.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
life, I'm fulfilled.
You got to live. It's really cool. You got to live an actual dream by continuously following these nudges. And yeah, to your point, like sometimes everything doesn't feel as glam as when we sit and we tell the story of it. Our everyday lives, there's things that we're always dealing with, and life is life. It does make those magical moments seem a little bit more magical too, though. Some of the magic of it. So we do have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this podcast. Can you share a little bit about your agency and what it is that you do and how you support entrepreneurs? We'd love to hear about that too.
Certainly, yeah. So we've been around for 5 years, 6 years now. Where I'm really focusing now is working with solopreneurs, small business owners, medium-sized enterprises, helping them craft a brand, helping them craft a strategy, and then helping them implement it. Because, you know, as an entrepreneur myself, as a business owner myself, I get so hung up in operations and day-to-day things. Sometimes it requires an outside voice to look a little bit more holistically at things, help you identify, you know, who is your target audience? Who are you trying to attract? What are you doing to attract them? Where are your audience? Are you actually in the right channels? You know, we all kind of social media totally upended marketing in a lot of ways, because suddenly there's this great democratizer of Facebook, Instagram, whatever, where it doesn't cost anything to post and share. At least that's
In theory.
in theory, that's our individual perspective. But you know, not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Instagram, not everybody is on whatever other social media, TikTok platform you want to choose. And so working with clients to help them distill down who their target audience is, like who do you as a business owner actually want to be working with on a day-to-day basis? Okay, cool. Let's build out a psychographic profile of what that person looks like. What are their emotional triggers? What factors go into their decisions? And how are you going to help them solve their problems? Build out this messaging, identify where you can connect directly with them, and then start putting that into practice. So I've got a client who's a hotel owner, and when I sat down doing the onboarding with him, I was like, who's your ideal client? He's like, oh, everybody. And I went, okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you want to have Harley Davidson riders starting up their motorcycles with a family with 2 children right outside this room window? And he was like, no, I don't have anything against Harley Davidson riders, but I don't think they're who I really want to have here. I was like, okay, so
A hotel in Sturgis might be like a whole different,
totally different
situation.
ballgame there. Yeah. I was like, okay, so like, who do you want to attract? And it turns out he's right on the highway. So obviously people on the highway, but he's looking for younger families and individuals, couples who are into the outdoors, into adventure. And he's implemented a lot of sustainability measures. And so people who've kind of got an environmental focus. And so working with clients like that to help them build a better understanding of who their audience is and how they can connect with them to drive more sales.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. I think a lot of business owners in the beginning think, it's everybody. Like we don't want to disclude people. But
Exactly.
by not discluding, we don't end up including.
Yeah, the way that I like to tell people is like think of your best customer, the person that you want to just sell to every single day, day in, day out, and speak to them. Speak directly to them. Doesn't mean that anybody standing beside them isn't going to hear you. They everybody around them is going to hear what you are saying. And if they're interested, they will come and talk to you as well. But you're at least then communicating directly to that person that you want to work with to attract more of them.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel like is standing in the way for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that you end up working with? Is the customer maybe the top thing? Is there anything else that you see stopping them?
One of the things that I find quite frequently is again kind of like we talked a little bit about earlier, but this fear of failure I'm going to call it a bit of a self-consciousness. People don't feel like what they're doing is special or worthy of sharing as a story. As a small business owner, again, you kind of get focused in your day-to-day activity or your day-to-day operations, and you're just like, it becomes so familiar to you that you don't see it as very interesting. Your customer, though, they love that sort of stuff. We worked with a chocolate manufacturer that did fully organic bean to bar chocolate bars, like most amazing chocolate I've ever tasted. We're like, how come you're not sharing like your production cycle? And they're like, well, who wants to see that? It's in our factory and it's loud and it's noisy. Like everybody wants to see the process that you go through from bean to bar. Like that is an amazing piece of content.
A ton of shows about that going behind the scenes.
Exactly. The whole behind the scenes thing is what your audience is kind of craving. People don't buy what you do or what you sell. They buy why you do it and why you sell it. So really thinking about telling your story and getting you from how you got from A to B, that's kind of the secret sauce to marketing, if you will.
Yeah, that's a liquid gold. I was going to say liquid gold nugget, but those are actually two very different things. It's both liquid and nugget form. Yeah, there's so much that holds entrepreneurs back. I mean, I myself am an entrepreneur. I specifically work with people in that fear department, people who know that they have gifts, they know that they have talents, they know that they have something that's meant to serve the world, and they just, for whatever reason, can't get over the hump. They feel what I call tethered. And so I work with people to release those tethers so that they can via breathwork and mindset coaching. So I totally know and understand and myself experience all of those things that can get in the way, and appreciate that there's people like you who can help and support entrepreneurs and really getting that clarity that they're seeking too. So thanks for showing up with what you do.
You're welcome. Yeah, like I'd love to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, just kind of in passing, but like this idea of manifestation. And I'm certainly, talk to my friends and family, I am the least woo person that you'll ever meet, but there's totally something to it. As I've gone through this journey myself, and you just mentioned breath work and visualization and meditation. Like when I was a kid, I did a lot of high level sports. And one of the things that I learned at a very young age is like that process of visualization and breathing to relax and just, envision in your own mind what you want the outcome to be. And that has stayed with me through my whole life. I do a lot of skiing. Some of it's probably in places I shouldn't. My mother wouldn't want me to be skiing, but at the top of the run, you're staring down this steep snow-covered face, and there's always a moment of close your eyes, envision where you're going to put your turns and how you're going to get down there. A couple breaths to relax, and next thing you know, you open your eyes, you drop in, and you get to the bottom. And I do that as well with my business and past businesses as well. Like sit down and take 15 minutes out of your day. And I do it daily. At 2:30, my alarm goes off. I go put on some headphones and do a little bit of meditating where just visualize what tomorrow is going to be like, what I'm going to do, and slow the breathing down and focus on the breath and become present, and then let the world take control.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I just did a presentation the other day, and I talked about breath work and meditation being a mixture of the practical and the magical, because it's science. It doesn't matter what you call it. Like, we can call it prayer, we can call it manifestation, we can call it quantum physics, we can call it the placebo effect, whatever we want to call it, it works. So find whatever method for you works. But generally, it involves some kind of visualization, putting yourself in the situation ahead of time. That's why runners envision themselves crossing the finish line, right? It gets you there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us. Is there anything that we haven't covered on that you're like, I just really want people to know this, whether it's to the entrepreneur or somebody just trying to understand the landscape of social media and how to market themselves? Anything that you want to share?
Oh, I mean, we could go on and on about the landscape of social media and how to market yourselves. And, I invite anybody who's just even curious to reach out to me through my website. I offer 30-minute consults free of charge. You can give me a call. We'll schedule a time. We can just see what you're dealing with and see if there's an opportunity there for us to work together, if I can help. But to just, the listener, the person who's watching this, who's just not sure, just trust yourself. At the end of the day, we're all put on this earth, and we've all got a limited time on this earth. So why not? What is the worst that could happen? Is it just going to be one more no? Or, could it open up a whole world of possibilities for you? A whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah, that's an amazing message. Thank you so much. I have one last question. I ask this of every single person
Certainly.
who comes on the podcast. Cal, where do you see the magic in the world?
I see the magic in the next generation. I've got a young daughter, and just experiencing the world through her eyes and watching her as she learns things and progresses and gets through different, whether it's a developmental stage or just like a light bulb clicks on of, oh, so that's how that works. Like, to me, that is absolutely magical, of seeing the evolution and the continuation of humanity.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. How old is your daughter?
She turns 10 in 9 days.
Oh, well, happy birthday to her. How exciting. That's a magical age.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If people want to reach out to you, I'll put the links in the show notes, but where can they find you?
So we are birr, wearebirr.com is where you can reach out to me through the agency, or if you want to reach out to me personally, I am Kyle Hamilton on pretty much all the social media channels.
Nice. You nabbed that handle on all of them, huh?
I missed TikTok though.
Oh, dang it. That other Kyle Hamilton.
That other one. Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on, Kyle.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
So many realizations in that episode. I love that Kyle himself had, oh my gosh, there was this moment of this woman in France who had said to me, I'm trying to live my life with no regrets. What if each of us showed up in our lives every day and said, what if I tried to live my life with no regrets? And that could help us with that question. Like, what is one more no? What is one more no? What possibilities could open up for me if I'm willing to potentially receive one more no? Who knows when that next one might be a yes? So I hope you feel inspired from this conversation with Kyle, and go check him out. If you're looking for a marketing agency, you can feel that he is true to his core, and could be potentially a great person for you to work with. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. If you felt like there was something really powerful for you, share this with a friend, forward it along. You can take a little screenshot of the episode, share it on social media, tag me, tag Kyle. Our handles are in the show notes. I'm Untethered Jen on Instagram. He is Kyle Hamilton. I am Kyle Hamilton on his social channels. But you can check out all of his links in the show notes. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye.